Bosco, Tom, how are you?
I'm good, mate. Lovely to be here.
It's an honour to have you here.
Thank
For
you.
me, I don't know whenever anybody else is watching this, it's a Friday, and of all the podcasts I've been doing, this has been my highlight of the week. I've been looking forward to speaking with you.
Thank you. I'm honored, and I'm looking forward to our chat as well.
Fantastic. So we go back a little way. Our paths crossed a few times, and probably a little bit more with more frequency of late. Okay, so we've got a familiarity of each other's worlds, what we bring to the table. But let's assume that people know nothing about you. Okay, the floor's yours. Who is Bosco?
Thanks, my man. Well, look, I'm a storyteller, a strategist, and a speaker. It's probably a really good way of explaining what I do. I'm the chief brand officer for two big brands, Global RevGen as well as Quant Plus. Global RevGen is a marketing collective in Australia. We're a performance media agency. We work with different emerging industries, but one of the industries that we're well known for is we service we're engaged with about 70% of the higher education sector in Australia. And we are responsible for a lot of the international media buying for universities. So we do a lot of marketing across 55 countries. And post-COVID, we kept getting a question from our clients, which is how do you fix crappy creatives? And how do you fix the creative ingenuity of advertising? And it was a question that we took a deep dive in, and through government grants and rebates, we were able to actually dabble in AI. And we came up with the world's first technology called Quant Plus, and it empowers any of our consumers or clients to understand creative ad performance intelligence before they spend their advertising dollar. No one was doing this in the world. You typically have to spend money to understand where you could have improved it. What we do is provide that intelligence ahead of time. So that came through in around 2022. And my responsibility has been to grow the Quant Plus brand across the world, and we're having some really amazing conversations and commercially made this product viable. And it's been in market now for a few years. And my role requires a lot of speaking, a lot of storytelling, and really bringing the brands to life. And so I've spent a lot of time on stage, speaking at industry events, speaking at association events around the world, and really, it's really exciting for me to live out my purpose in life, which is trying to empower the brands I work with and try to leave them better than I found them.
Love it. Okay. All right. So there's lots and lots to unpack there. What I find quite interesting, so if we were to summarize what you're quite excited about with your world first, okay, what you've essentially you've created something which is the golden goose of business, which is the crystal ball. Okay, so let's have a little look at this. If I can predict this, then I can circumnavigate that to the benefit of business and everyone associated with it. Okay, but that spun off of a moment which everyone wished they had a crystal ball for, which was COVID. No one predicted. So you had the Exhibit A and Exhibit B and birth from that. I think there's a sense of irony in there somewhere.
Absolutely. I mean, look, I think a lot of businesses went in a different direction. Digital advertising is about to be about $800 million in revenue, or I think it's 800 billion, in revenue. And I think COVID really changed how we looked at employment, looked at commerce, looked at how we do business. Someone said to me recently, we're reinventing the history of work and what work would look like. And having done a TED Talk recently, I'm looking to do another one and speak for TED again. And one of my research is on the future of work. I get asked this question quite a bit, is what does the future of work look like? And I feel like we need to rethink and revisit that, because the last time someone looked at when the 9-to-5 job was created and the concept of an 8 or 10 hour workday, it takes you back to the 1800 era when they were building manufacturing of cars. That's the concept. So I want you to think about this, right? All it took was an international crisis for us to go, yeah, we'll work from home. Yeah, we'll do things digitally. We'll start working, digitally and embrace it. But the ability to use Zoom and work from home, that concept has been there for years. But it took an international crisis for us to go, yeah, we'll reinvent the way we work, right? So I feel like the world was going in one direction, and the founders of Quant decided to go in a different direction, where a lot of people were asking, how can we get our clients to spend more money? We went into a different direction that said, how can you save money? And, there's an old saying in marketing that says half of my advertising dollars is wasted. The problem is I don't know which half.
Yeah.
And so, it's a question that we answer every day. And so our challenges today, to be honest with you, isn't, telling the story or telling the product. We are breaking the norms. A lot of people fear AI. A lot of people are worried that AI is taking jobs. We embrace AI. We work with AI, and, we've had 2 of our highest revenue earning years because we've basically understood how to work with it. So I think, at the end of the day, I think you have to, there's a lot of conversations here to unpackage, but the biggest one, I think, is embracing fear.
Yes, so embracing fear, embracing change. Change gives you 2 options. It's whether it's like a challenge. You can either look at it and it's negative, as at first at surface level it may look like, or you can re-engineer that into an opportunity. But people don't like the unfamiliar. They don't like the uncertainty. They don't know when something bad is not going to end, and so forth. But it's a personal choice. It's a business choice, a DNA of how you look at it and how you play around with it, for sure. And you're quite right with the world work. So you got how COVID changed the work environments. Okay, for better or for worse, we'll only ever know for much later down the line. Obviously, there's mental health and other aspects, social factors in there as well. And there's some jobs that can't be done that way. We get that. Okay, but there's some that we have done for a long time, but it took a societal trauma for that to happen. But I like going back to 9 till 5, because I always joke about it, because I always got Dolly Parton in my head when I think of that. Sort of feeling like
you're dating yourself now.
But she sings about it, feeling like it's long hours for me. We're business owners. I'd love to work 9 to 5. That sounds fantastic. But so we have evolved since then. But if we look back even further again, so I think it's Winston Churchill that said the further we look back, the more we understand the future. And before that, the working week included the Saturday. Okay. And it is Henry Ford who changed that, because he wasn't selling enough cars. And he needed to create him shifting his workers to giving them a weekend meant that people had leisure time to want to buy a car, and he created an economy and changed the world of work for the world, essentially. So that if you keep looking back there, so these big events that happen have a domino effect.
Absolutely. And right now we're seeing a progressive world. Countries in the Middle East, countries in Europe are already dabbling in 3-day weekends and changing the norm of what work looks like. The other part of this as well is no one's talking about Generation Alpha and what they're about to do. So, the Generation Alpha is the next generation, and they're hustlers, they're entrepreneurs, they do not settle for the norm. We have young kids today, or youth today, that have side hustles and want to work where they feel less restrictive, and the confines of a full-time role isn't what it looks like today. And so, when we think about, leaders of today, we have to start preparing for that, because that's already hitting our doorstep. I have interviews today from university students who are interviewing me and changing the conversation about why they should work for us, as opposed to why, we offer an attractive workplace. So I think the human society is evolving, just like, when we moved from DVDs and renting Blockbuster DVDs on a Friday to Netflix, or when the Smith Corona was finally retired and we decided to start using keyboards. We're moving into a Jetson era. We're speaking into phones on walkie-talkie. We have now computers on our head, it's called spatial computing and immersive reality. We have Ray-Bans that deliver audio engineering. We have a whole new world of machine learning. And so I think we have to look at the human arrogance and say to ourselves, what can we do to better ourselves in the future? And you can look into the past, and absolutely, traces of the past can definitely lead to evolution and success. But it's about changing the questions, because there's an old saying that says, just when you think you know the questions, the answers change.
Yeah, that's very true. And yeah, I agree with that. And you mentioned there, which I found quite interesting, is the reversal of university students interviewing you, and the power dynamic essentially changing temporarily. What that may be indicative of where things are going, but it's definitely indicative of the current lay of the land. So we see this happen in the world of recruitment prior, and it drifts in and out. It's a bit like a pendulum. Okay, and it's a supply demand pendulum. So when candidates are short supply, they interview you. When when jobs are in short supply, you're interviewing them. You know,
Absolutely.
so there's other variables that go in place there,
Yeah.
and there's a sense of entitlement with it as well, which shifts one way or the other.
100%, and I think the Economic Times is really a good indicator of that. So in 2008, I was in Canada. I was born in Tanzania, spent 18 years in Vancouver, Canada. And at that time, I just started my agency, and it was when the American recession had hit, and there was a massive shift in the economy. There was job scarcity. It was a good time to start a business. Some of the most wonderful creations came out of that particular time. You had the Airbnb's concept, and you had the Uber concept, and all these other concepts that came through. And that's because there was a scarcity, and I think what COVID did was it changed the shift for a while, and it changed the market a little bit, and it created this tidal wave of a different demand. And it'll be interesting to see where we go next, because economic crisis can hit us anytime. As it's a speculative market, but I also am excited to see what the next generation does, because the things that we're seeing today, we get to work with brilliant minds. We work with data scientists, we work with young minds, and they look at the world very differently, and they want to create change, and they want to change the norm. So it gives me hope, and it leaves me hopeful, because I feel like having spent a lot of time in the education sector these last few years, I'm really excited about the promise of tomorrow.
Yeah. Okay. All right. I like your excitement for the tomorrow. I think you can also manifest who you attract on the basis of how you think yourself. So the fact that even as an organisation, you've bucked the trend on how we can get our customers to spend less. It seems so obvious when you say it, but it's almost comical when you say it in the same breath. Which is where it gets your attention. Okay, because ultimately people will spend more with you.
Yeah.
But you have to change that narrative. Now, if you're doing that, then you're going to be attracting that same mindset. You're going to attract the disruptors, the movers, future movers and shakers. And obviously we're talking about innovation here. So, that innovation comes from adversity. It comes from problems. It comes from challenges. Innovation doesn't come from a smooth times, and opulence, because everything's working just fine. So what do I need to fix?
Yeah, absolutely. And look, I think you're right. I think when you improve in efficiency, people will tend to be drawn to you and actually end up spending more with you. I think we have to change the agency model in general. Someone recently put a post on Ad News about the fact that the currency of trading time for pay needs to evolve, because we're now a world where we have to trade key outputs and results for compensation, and the agency model is still stuck in that model of billing billable hours, right? So what Quant does is it allows any business of any size to have an even playing field, regardless of budgets. So, if you have a bigger budget or smaller budget, at the end of the day, you need to make sure that you make the most of your budget. And I think that's really what Quant wants to do, is empower people to make, the right decision. Now, people might say, well, if everyone follows this recipe, wouldn't every form of creativity look the same? And it's a really great point, but the truth is having tried this on so many different campaigns, everybody's creative DNA looks very different. Everyone's playbook on advertising looks very different. Just because you know what are some of the key creative elements or triggers that spark conversations, it still allows you to be creative. It still allows you to split test. It still allows you to be curious. I'll give you a great example. A few years ago, in higher education, one of the things that our AI does is it's able to tell you what are the top performing creative elements when it comes to creative, fonts, gender, skin tonality. And so I noticed something in the Australian market for higher education. Someone with a Caucasian skin kept showing up really high in creative advertising. Now, one would say, well, is AI woke or is AI racist because it favors one skin tonality over the other? And so that was a curiosity that I wanted to do a deep dive on and dig a little deeper to go, hey, has AI got this wrong? And so when I went to the universities that we worked with, we discovered something. And what we realized is that the reason why it favored a Caucasian person in an image wasn't because it was the right thing. It was because most of the universities at that time had a one-size-fits-all, and they didn't have enough investments to have an international look. So what they did was they relied on one look for all of their creative collateral. So I said the question, which was, well, what happens if we disrupt this notion and we create an international look? What happens if we start testing international looks to creative advertising? And you know what? We got better results. But it required us to ask the question and be creative enough and be bold enough to try other looks in our advertising. And that's the beauty about creativity and marketing, is you may have a winning formula, but it doesn't stop you from trying to find other formulas.
Yeah, I like that. And I've done a little bit of work in the AI space. So I've got some good data scientists that I speak with now. And there was a period when I like being able to do Zoom meetings that been about for a lot longer before it became a hot topic.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
But previously there was many examples where it failed. We had racist digital cameras, we had all sorts of different things, but it was on the basis of the data that's put in. So it only can start with what goes in, and then it then does what it does.
And it's come a long way. I mean, recently there was a big kerfuffle with Google and its a visual AI called Sora, and someone had put in a little bit about the history of World War II, and they started spitting out images of an African American in a Nazi uniform, and within hours, Google got into some really troubled waters, I would say, and it was a PR nightmare, and it was an example of an epic fail, right? Because AI went too woke, and it could potentially, people were saying this could change the archives of history if we empowered AI to do that, right? Obviously, it's come a long way. So, back in the day, mathematically, AI was studying patterns and it was studying algorithms. And, we call it AI today. It's been there since the 50s and 60s, and they called it machine learning back then. But if you think about it, your Spotify playlist for music, your choices of what you pick on Netflix, that's all machine learning. It's been there for a while, Even the algorithm to serve you an ad when you say, oh, I'm really looking forward to trying the new iPhone, and 60 seconds later there's an iPhone ad showing up on your Facebook. All of that is powered by AI. It's secretly been embedded in your life and you just didn't know about it until we decided to coin the term AI, right? But let's be honest, artificial intelligence has been there a while. But what I've learned is that AI is getting smarter, and in some cases it's also exposing itself. So the reason why it's getting smarter is because it's moving from studying patterns to studying human behavior. Now, that's the good thing, but I'll also tell you what the bad thing is. So the good thing is, using this tool called Superhuman, and it allows you to read your emails, create drafts. And as a speaker, I come back off stage to like 50 emails. So AI is studying my way I sign my emails, how I finish my emails, how I start my emails. And when I'm responding to it, it says, do you want me to use your tone of voice? So it's already studying and predicting my tone of voice. And that's where I feel like the next wave of AI is, the GPT-4s and the 5s and what's coming up it's going to be mind-blowing, right? But here's something we discovered with AI. When AI doesn't have information or doesn't have enough information, you're going to hear the word AI hallucination, or it hallucinates. And what that means is it comes up with its own information because it's hallucinating. So at Quant, we had to have data science and humans to make sure that we protect ourselves from that, because we can't afford for it to have an AI hallucinate and come up with its own data. because that's when it stops machine learning. You know what I mean? So I think that's an interesting time for us, is because, we're going to start hearing a little bit about some of the challenges that AI has. But, like anything else in technology, things evolve, things improve. And I think that the next 5-10 years ahead of us is going to change really everything we do, and how we do it.
You know what? Well, it's the first time I heard that term. I think that's brilliant. And for me, that's a classic case of A/B testing to go. So we leave one hallucinating and we leave one with filling the gaps, and let's see where it goes.
Yeah. And that's the thing, right? I think that's the beauty about this is, someone said to me, will AI take jobs? Will it replace people? And I speak around the country. It's one of the most popular talks that I'm asked to speak on is the future of marketing and the future of communication, the future of the workforce. And I end with this keynote. And there's a slide. It has a robot waiting to sit in an interview, and he's holding a briefcase next to a human, and they're looking at each other. And I have a saying that says, the workforce won't be replaced by AI, but the workforce will be replaced by humans using AI. And I think that's the key part here. If you think about social media, when people started learning about social media, it started to replace some of the old marketing roles. If you think about, dare I say it, the yellow pages, or if you look at trade magazines, humans learned how to advertise on digital, and now most of the market share is there. If you think about out-of-homes media, why is streaming media doing so well today as opposed to traditional media? It's because more people have moved to an early adoption and now have adopted streaming media as part of their entertainment, right? So I think, we don't have to worry about the technology. We have to worry about the people that use that technology moving forward. And then I finish my keynote with a flying car, and people go, oh my God, this is already hit here. And the problem is, Tom, they have, they've already figured out how to fly a car. The problem is how to land it and where to park it. That's the biggest issue, is parking. It's not actually flying the car, it's finding a parking spot.
You need a runway in everyone's house.
Pretty much, man.
Okay, well, listen, so we're coming to a wrap up now. Obviously, I'm well aware that you've done a very successful TED Talk and you're due to do another. Do you want to share with people what that topic was so they can view that talk?
Yeah, so in 2015-ish, I got off stage and someone said to me, hey, have you ever thought about doing a TED Talk? And I had no idea what it was. And I said, no, I've never heard of this before. And so I Googled it at that point and, discovered what it was. And I was like, oh, this is cool. And then the second week I had someone, at another conference say to me, have you ever thought about writing a book? And so the universe started speaking to me about it. And so I started looking at the applications and everything else. And I tried to apply for the big TED event. And they said, look, unless you're a celebrity, well, this is reserved for people that can sell tickets. And at the time they were trying to sell a stadium. So then I went to another TED event, and very similar, it was just a very hard process. Thousands of people try to apply for a TED Talk. So someone said to me, hey, why don't you try TEDx Stanley Park? They're moving to the Queen Elizabeth Theater. They have about an audience of about 3,000 people. So I threw my name in the hat, and there was about 100 different applications, but I picked a topic that had nothing to do with work. The topic was around how to live life with purpose. And the reason why I picked that topic was an online marketer, and I did some research, and I found that after the American recession, a lot of people were questioning their purpose in life and what they should do with it. And so, having had some mentors in this space, I decided to pay homage to my late mentor and basically come up with a talk about how to discover your purpose in life and how to live with momentum. It got picked up. There was about 100 applications. I was shortlisted, and I went through 24 scripts. I went through 4 coaches that had different opinions, and probably about 8 different dress rehearsals. Probably spent about 360 hours preparing for this. Now, for anyone who's never done a TED Talk, it's a little red dot, and you have about 15 to 18 minutes, and there's no script. You're literally on a spotlight. And I've done talks, that are hours. I've done 6-hour workshops. At this point, I'd already done about 400 events. And while I could speak with props and PowerPoints, I had to memorize my script, and I had nothing to support my talk. It was just me on stage. So it changed me. I would say that it was probably the most rewarding thing I've done in my professional career. It's allowed me to become a better negotiator, a better presenter. I've gone on to speak to 1,000. In total, I've done over 1,000 events. It's led to me coming to Australia. It's allowed me to speak around the world. Doing a TEDx talk is like winning an Oscar. It just gets you recognized. The problem is now there's a lot more TED's chapters, and there's a lot more people, for better or worse, that have learned to commercialize it. But at the time, I had come in at a very hard time to get a TED talk. I was fortunate enough to get a standing ovation, and it's really changed my life, I would say, for the better. I would say, there's moments in your life that sort of are some of your defining moments. I've had a few. Coming to Canada and coming to Australia was one of them. Speaking for TEDx was a great one for me. And now working with AI has been a game changer, because, without Quant, I work in the performance media space like any other agency out there. But our competitive value proposition is that we work with AI to empower data-driven decision-making today. So they come some defining moments in life, and you've got to sort of grab it or take it, and grab it by both the horns, I guess. And I would say this was one of those moments.
Love it. Okay, good. So hopefully we'll see a nice spike in people watching your TED talk and giving you some feedback, and then in the next one.
Look, I've had over 1 million views on YouTube. It's great. I've had some funny comments. I've had some critique. I've had some positive feedback. It was many years ago. It was in 2016 when I did the talk. But the cool thing about TED is that you get to see people watching it from different parts of the world. I've had comments from Siberia. I've had comments from Mongolia. I've had comments in Uganda. It's amazing. And it's allowed me to connect with a lot more people from around the world.
And that probably reinforces one of your first points in this conversation of how the world's changed, and that connectability, and how people can still relate from entirely different cultures to something that you've done.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So to wrap this up, what you've said has resonated with someone somewhere, Uganda, Siberia, for example. What would be the best way for them to find you, contact you?
Yeah, look, the good news about today's world is that stalking someone on social media is okay these days, I guess. I'm on LinkedIn. My profile is under Bosco Anthony. I've got all the social platforms under that same name. So if you just type in Bosco Anthony, it's pretty easy to find me. At the end of the day, I think I'm just looking for people who are similar-minded, kindred spirits, and more importantly, really are curious about the future. I think those are the best conversations that I've been having lately.
Yeah, love it. Okay, I'm sure there'll be an influx. And once again, thank you very much for your time.
Appreciate it, Tom.
Thank you for watching this episode. I hope that you did enjoy it, had lots of takeaways from it. As before, please subscribe below so you can keep on top of any new releases we have. And also, if you would like to have your story told, just reach out with me and I'd love to give you that platform. My best email address is tom@purplepatchconsulting.com. Thank you.